Hey, Nafka here, and today we're doing a quick demo of the new Resistance starter. You can see both starters here. I've been wanting to try out the Resistance and see how it holds up really against any army, to see how the starter set plays out. So I'm going to do a very standard mission, and you can see here on the table I've got probably a few extra buildings on it because, well, I just like to throw extra buildings on. But this is the standard mission where we have 3 objectives that will need to be pulled off the board for the game, and that's pretty much the standard demo game that if you've ever played at one of the conventions or anything like that, you've seen the guys at Hawk War Games show. This is the mission that they play, and I figured it was the best one to kind of showcase how the Resistance might work. Alright, let's take a look at the Resistance first. The Resistance in the starter set comes with 2 lift hawks, and you can see here I've started to paint one of them, although it's horrible lighting. I guess it's not going to show very well. These are the transports. The transports here are carrying 2 M9 Hannibals, and these are 2 damage point tanks, and these are heavies. So it's interesting to note that there are heavy support choice or heavy choices in the starter set. Also, you'll notice that these 3 half-tracks here are carrying 3 separate squads of Resistance fighters. Now that makes it interesting because you have 3 separate squads that can hit 3 separate buildings, where the other starter sets only have 2 squads, even though they carry more men. So that will make it interesting to see how that plays out. I find that to be that might be a very defining difference between the starter sets. Otherwise, the all AA guns are done right here with the gun wagons. And these gun wagons have an 18-inch shot, move fire 6, and hit on 2s. So, but they have no countermeasures, so they are extremely vulnerable. It's very interesting with using the hovercraft rules how those will play out. I have some ideas on it. I have no idea if they'll work, but we will find out very soon. Now, of course, you're all familiar with the UCM. We'll be going over this just real quick. Obviously, we have the AA Rapiers here. We have 3 Condors for transports, for dropships. The anti-tank Sabres, the UCM Praetorian Warriors, and their APCs here. So, very standard starter set game. One that you would play just to get a feel for the game, and this should hopefully give us a good look at the Resistance. Alright, end of round 1. Let's talk about the Resistance first. I ended up moving my heavy Hannibal tanks up here. Why? Just because I wanted to get them out there first. I ended up going first. I also moved out the hover tanks with the AA inside. I am keeping the AA inside just because this hover tank does have countermeasures. Kind of zoom in there. And my goal is to protect that thing until I want them to get out and actually fire at something, because that hovercraft is pretty well armored, has some good damage points. And of course, I put my infantry back here because he did go last, and he had his rapiers sitting there, and I didn't really know where he was going to put them, and I didn't want to put my infantry right in the middle of the firing lane of the UCM. So over here on the UCM side, this is what he moved on last. He moved his Condor on here and dropped these guys down. Great fire lane. And if you get down here and look, got a little dropship there that's kind of in the way. We'll see what that looks like. It looks like he can get some reaction fire as soon as I activate that. Of course, we'll see what happens when I move those guys. Of course, if he moves first, he has a chance of taking that sucker down. We will see how that goes because I need to get those tanks out. Over on the other side of the field, his infantry have moved up here, and they are in position behind this building to try and take these 2 objective points. A good move because now he's within range of getting them. My AA, which is over here, really has no chance to reaction fire to stop them from getting into those buildings. Over on the other side, we have his tanks over here. These guys are kind of the either probably his ace in the hole, looking at 24-inch range from these Saber tanks, and they'll be coming across with some good angles, coming down through those buildings this way, kind of into my backfield, or taking out buildings at a range, so doing some damage. And I think that pretty much covers this round. And we will be talking about the game. Oh, I do want to mention one thing real quick that I have seen so far. Hover tanks. I'm used to flying my dropships just right over some of these small buildings like this, and having a hover tank that really only moves 10 inches, having no choice to really fly over these buildings, it does really channel your movement as far as how you're getting anything transported by a hover tank. So that's one key thing about the Resistance that I have noticed. And I kind of thought that might be the case, but it really became like this is number one, you know, it's a limiting factor as far as how you get those guys out there and get them into the game. So other than that, we'll be looking at round two. All right, here we are at the end of round two. A few miscellaneous interesting things. He did get to go first, and these AA tanks did take advantage. Got some amazing shots in and took out the first lift hawk. It did land okay, and these tanks got out just fine. So that was the first casualty of the game. Other than that, we had some center movement here, and we had some movement over here as well. So he got out here. He did take out one of my half tracks, had a little bit of visibility, and took him out. And that's pretty much what happened. It was pretty short and sweet. We are going to have kind of a mess here in this building coming this round real fast, and that will make it'll be interesting to see how the two actually work in close combat against each other. So we will see very soon. Alright, here we are. We have now completed 3 rounds, is that correct? 3 rounds. And as in Drop Zone, things kind of go back and forth, and we've had a little bit of back and forth. Now, the first thing that I want to pull out is these heavy tanks decided to just unload on his, what's the name of those tanks? I can't think of them.
Rapiers.
The Rapiers. I can't remember the name of one of my favorite tanks. The Rapiers. These guys unloaded with 2 strength 10, 2 strength 9 guns, and it all they did was just bounce off armor. So, I mean, armor 10, you know, is tough in Drop Zone, and tank battles sometimes just don't go either way. So that did absolutely 0. So it was interesting, and he very quickly, look, nobody's there, picked him up, and I got to move around here, and move them down here. Obviously he's getting in range to try and take out some another lift hawk or something to that effect. And if you notice as well, he's missing one, and that's simply because of something interesting, getting used to Resistance fighters with their homemade RPGs. With the Focus 2 rule, they were actually able to hit and get an energy 12 hit against one of the tanks and destroy it. I tried to use the shape charge rules with the little half tracks, but that did nothing. Obviously it's a long shot, but you got to take them. Other things that happened this round, I zoom out a little bit there. Obviously these guys came from over here, dropped into this building, obviously to try and take this. The interesting thing that happened was this battle here. Now, Resistance fighters appear to be very equal as far as the UCM, and maybe even have a slight edge on the fortitude saves when they start taking damage. But what really made it interesting, I think, is what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and that was the fact that the Resistance starter set comes with 3 squads with only 2 guys in it. So it gives you that one extra guy to go into the building, and when 4 bases obviously are facing against 2 squads are facing 1 squad, the dice get divided. It's much easier to stay in the fight, and so there is kind of an advantage as far as the Resistance fighters, as far as that goes. Really makes it an interesting way to look at it. Obviously, his sabers came across. They've been kind of a big threat in the game from that. Even at that angle, with the range of sabers, I know some people don't like them, but I think that they're fantastic. Did some damage there. My AA did some stuff here. One thing that I want to point out as well that was interesting and different with the resistance is this right here. Now, by foregoing one disembarkation, you can fire and then get back into the vehicle, and then all of a sudden, bam, you have your countermeasures active. So getting out and then getting back in as kind of a tactic back and forth is quite viable for the resistance, and was something that I was interested in checking out. So I think we're going to go into round 4. Nobody has any objectives yet because he did fail his fortitude there, so his one base that survived is now sitting, whoa, there's a bad shadow, down there in the APC. I will have to start over with 6s to find that objective. I have some guys sitting in there to find that objective, and we will see how this round goes. Alright, here we are after 4 rounds. Interesting as far as, I think the big thing about this round is I was able to find an objective here. I needed 6s. Hey, I had 2 squads in there. I rolled 2 6s. So these guys immediately got out and are now at this point right here. They jumped out, and the Lift Hawk is trying to back them out. Now that doesn't mean the UCM didn't go for him. What he did, he took a daring move. He took his Condor, flew it over to this point here, dropped out his rapiers so that he could reaction fire and get really good shots at my Lift Hawk. Fortunately for me, you don't see any rapiers because these 2 tanks turned around and really got some really good dice rolls because I needed 5s and 6s to do damage to them, and they took out both of the rapiers. So that was vital. Both those tanks did their job. Also here, you'll see that these guys, these battle wagons, were inside the hovercraft, were able to move, disembark, and shoot, and took out the Condor. I'm really starting to dig how these hovercraft work, but like all good things, they must come to an end. With an armor of 8, there are some sabers coming around there, which will probably make pretty short work, even with 4 damage points of this hovercraft. It only has an armor 8, so he's going to need 3s. Double damage is well within each shot's range, and a good chance that thing's not going to be fighting much longer. So let's look at what the game's coming down to now. I've got one objective point here that's in here right now, which will be moving off of the game board, and there's not a lot that can stop it at this point. Over here, he had evacuated his surviving Praetorian squad. They all jumped into the same building. He now has 2 dice to find this objective. This will be on a 5+, this on a 6+. His plan is to get that objective, extract it for 2 points. We're going into round 5. There is still time for him to do so. And over on the other side of the board, I have 1 squad in this one. They find the objective on a 4+ this round. It's their 3rd round in there. My other squad is damaged and is stranded here because somebody blew up their half-track. It was not fair, not nice, but hey, it happens in war. So looking around, I think that pretty much covered everything. And that's pretty much it. We'll be seeing round 5.
All right.
All right, we're going into round 6. Now it's gotten very interesting here. Okay, I was able to extract the objective right here, and that was last round. That was the explosions, right? Okay. So I basically what happened is I loaded up my AAs to jump out here and possibly get a shot on his escaping Condor, but if you look there, it's way out of my sight there. Away from the building, even though it's a 6-inch building, I'm not going to have much of a shot on it, so that's really pretty much a no-go. He did put a whole bunch of shots into my hovercraft and did not kill it, which is way exciting because hey, it's still alive. Other than that, what else happened? You found the objective. I pulled an objective, and some things moved. And I shot a building. That was pretty much it. So yeah, not a whole lot of action, but the score, he will easily have this off the board. And it will be tied at 2-2. I will have a 3+. Wait, it was a 4+ last round, so it's a 3+ this round to find this objective. So it is possible to squeeze out a 3-2 victory. Of course, he could also pummel that building. I'm not sure he might be able to do enough damage, but it would be a lot. So I might be pretty safe as far as staying in the building, and it might come down to that die roll. So really close game. It's been going back and forth, and we will see where we're at after this round. Okay, I rolled off camera when I should not have been rolling off camera. Miscellaneous stuff happened here, obviously. I pulled this around to save it because I got to go first. I rolled a 2 in my initiative, and the power of that 2 beat his 1, so I got to hide my hovercraft in a spot where it can't be destroyed in case we go to a draw. Obviously there were some other shots going on, but the big thing is right here. This is what is the most important, because I needed a 3+ to find that objective, and dun dun dun, it's a 2. So we come to a draw where we are going to be counting victory points. But regardless of who pulls it off at this point, because let's look at the casualties real quick.
I think you got it.
Let's take a look. Those lift hawks are expensive though.
Oh, okay.
So we'll calculate. Look here, I have my casualties there, and he's got his casualties there. Oh, I think you're probably right though.
Yeah, I think you got me.
But regardless, it was a super close game, and I think even the points are going to be pretty close. So I think it's, you call it a draw, and as far as the resistance goes, that was a lot of fun. Resistance, how I felt about it, I really like the hovercrafts. I think the first time somebody dedicates themselves to shoot at it, they're going to go bye-bye, because if someone really goes after it, they just don't have the armor. But as far as getting in and out of this vehicle, keep your hovercraft close to whoever they're taking with them, because that is a very strong and very mobile unit that can jump out and shoot.
Very tricksy.
It's very tricky. They jump in, they jump out. I'm, of course, not pointing the camera at the right model. It's very nice. I like it a lot as far as how it works on the field. I thought they were going to be slower because you can only move 10 inches coming off the board edge. But I think that the fact that they can get out right away compensates for that, so that you are in the game just as fast as the other armies, which have to deploy and cannot fire the round that they deploy. So it still means round 3 is about your approximation of when these guys are going to be active. These guys destroyed a Condor, jumped out in front of three Saber tanks, and survived. It did take 3 damage points when it got shot, but I also like the RPGs in the guys. Even though it's a one-shot deal, it's very valuable for getting some shots in at tanks that come by the buildings. I also like the 3 squads for the resistance. Now, obviously, in bigger games, that's not going to matter as much because people are going to be choosing more of what they're bringing. But the fact that they're broken down in the starter sets into 3 squads instead of 2 is, I think, a slight advantage as far as jumping out and finding objectives. But not all missions will be like that, and I think that, I think it'll balance itself out. These tanks, the Hannibals, they're good. They're, when you're going up against armor, armor 10, it's kind of a crapshoot on whether or not you're blowing stuff up or not, but they do have 2 shots, which is nice. Allows them a little bit more flexibility. They also have a machine gun, which I think they have a machine gun. They do have a machine gun, but it's, energy 3. If guys come up against the walls, then you can start shooting at them with the machine gun. So it is a nice tank. It's not too many points. I believe it's a 45-point model, which puts it it really competes well with the Sabres. So I think the Sabres are 35, I think is what they are. The half tracks are nice. They're well armored, relatively mobile. I really wish that the starter set had listed the extra upgrade for the gun to help in close combat, but I think for the fact of the starter set, I'm sure I see why David did not allow the upgraded grenades on the half tracks. So it makes sense. Lift hawks are nice. They do not reaction fire well. They have an accuracy of 4+. I should bring my lift hawk into the game here. They, because their accuracy on the AA gun is a 4+, they reaction fire poorly, even with 2 shots. I had expected the AA to be a little bit more powerful. I think if you are being aggressive and you're moving in, because these things are very durable, I think in a bigger game I can see how multiple lift hawks can do some serious damage going up against condors and other medium drop ships, so I can see how that would work. What other unit did I have in the game? I think that's pretty much all of it that I talked about. As far as the resistance goes, I will be breaking down more on the resistance this week as the releases hit and talking about them more on the site. So that's pretty much it. It was a close game, and I think we're just going to call that a draw, because I think I might have won by maybe 30 points. Maybe right around there somewhere. So that's about it, and I'll be talking to you later.